Hello, this is Edward Troxel, and today we're going to take a look at markers. Using scripts to go through the marker list or create new markers is a very easy task, so let's see how we can do that with the markers. In Premiere, we can have 4 different types of markers. You can add them all by simply pressing M. Then as you double-click on the marker icon, or just press M again, it will open up the marker dialog. Here you can put in a name, a comment, and you can choose the type of marker you want. This is just a comment marker. If you choose a chapter marker, then that will create new chapter points when you're rendering. Then you have a segmentation marker and a web link where you can put in a URL and a target. To create a region, let's go back to comment marker, and we can make this have a distance, and then when we click on OK, this is now a region, and we can come up here and resize the region on the timeline. So let's get rid of this marker and look at what we can do with scripting. In this case, I have a bunch of events on the timeline, and suppose we want to add a marker to each one of these events. Well, we can click here, and we could click M, then we could come over here and try to get on the exact spot. Click M, and so forth and so on, the rest of the way down the timeline. Or we can write a script that will add them each for us along the way. So let's go into our Visual Studio Code and start writing some code here to get these markers added. First thing we need to do is get the sequence. So var my sequence equals app.project active sequence. We need to say which types of tracks we're looking at. So we'll say var track type list equals my sequence dot video tracks. And since we're only going to assume that there's one track on here that we're going to look at, which is the first track, which would be track number 0 because we're using a 0-based system, let's set our this track equals track type list, and we want number 0. Now let's go through all of the clips in that track, and then we're going to add a marker to each one of those. So 4, and we're going to go var I equals 0. I is less than this track dot clips dot num items, the number of clips in this track, and I plus plus to increment I. Now we need to add the new marker for each clip. So first of all, let's get which clip this is. So track clip equals this track dot clips, and we're going to get the ith clip. That will let us go through every one of them. Then we want to do a my sequence dot markers dot create marker, and then we have to tell it where to create the marker. So that's going to be tclip dot start dot seconds. Now let's try to run this in Premiere and see what happens. So first we go over to our run section, then we have to press the Control-Shift-A to select Premiere Pro, and then we can run our debug in Premiere. Now let's go over and look in Premiere, and you will see that we now have a marker at the beginning of every clip on the timeline. So now let's modify our code a little bit so that we can actually add regions around each one of those events, and we're going to expand a little bit on it by naming the region by the name of the clip that's underneath it. So we're still going to start with setting the my sequence. We're still going to get the track type list, and we're still only going to look at the first track. Then we're going to go through the number of items on that track. We're going to create the new marker, very similar to what we did before. Only this time I'm going to add a variable in front of it, and I'm going to call it my marker. when it runs the mySequence.markers create marker, we're still going to leave it starting at that time, but it's going to actually put the marker into this variable. So now I can change the variable by adding a myMarker dot end, and we're going to change that to tclip dot end dot seconds. So now the marker will become a region because now it has a beginning and an end. And then we also want to pull over the name, so let's say myMarker dot name equals tclip dot name. Now we have our project reset with no markers, and we're going to run this again. And so run, come back over to Premiere, and you will now see that we have a bunch of regions on the timeline. So this region will go with this clip, and it is named the same as this clip. This region will go with this clip, and the name is the same. So now we've created markers and we've created regions on the timeline. In Premiere, you can also place markers on the clip itself. To do that, you can either have the clip selected, and when you press M, it will add a new marker in the clip. Let's undo that. Or you can double click the clip and it will open it up in the source window. You can see that I have several markers added on here. So let's look at the first one. This is a web marker, and I've got a URL listed here and a frame target, which this can be anything. So I'll just name it frame target. And we'll click on OK. And then we'll come over to the next one. This is just a standard marker, and its color is white. So I've named it white marker, and comment on a standard marker. Then let's go to the next one. This is a segmentation marker. The next one is a chapter marker. And the final one is once again just a regular comment marker. If you try to change the duration, you cannot create a region inside of a clip. So your only options are comment marker, chapter marker, segmentation marker, or web link. Now that we have a clip with several markers on it, let's try to pull these markers back out to where they're going to be on the main timeline. There are a few problems here that we have to look at. First of all, if we look at this clip in the source window, it starts at 1 hour. This marker, instead of being at 23 frames, is at 1 hour and 23 frames. Our timeline down here is starting at 0. So we want it to be 23 frames in from the beginning of this clip, not 1 hour and 23 frames. So we will take that into consideration as we modify this script. So let's go back to Visual Studio Code. We're going to start by getting the sequence just the same way as we had before. We're going to get the track list, look at the first video track. Then we're going to go through the clips that are on the timeline. So then we'll get the clip itself. And then this time I want to do something a little different. I have the clip, but now I need to get the clip as it is in the bin. So I'm going to call that bin clip equals tclip dot project item. Now I can get the number of markers that are in that bin clip. So let's get var marker count equals bin clip dot get markers dot num markers. Next, I'm going to create a couple of variables I can use to make sure that I know which marker I'm looking at. So I'm going to create a var current marker, just set that to null for now, and then I'm going to create a variable for previous marker and set that to null for now. Let's go ahead and get rid of this so that we can replace it, but for now I'm going to go for j equals 0, and we're going to look at marker counts. So as long as we're less than marker count, and then increment 1. So So this will let us go through all of the markers that are in there. Now I have to do a special case here because I can get the first marker, I can get the last marker, I can get the previous marker, I can get the next marker, but it's not as easy to just get the jth marker. So we're going to say if j is 0, then I'm going to get the first marker. So current marker equals bin clip dot get markers dot get first marker. If it's not the 0th one, then I want to get the next marker from whatever the previous marker was. So I'm going to go else, then I'm going to set the previous marker equal to the current marker. Then I'm going to set the current marker equal to bin clip dot get markers dot get next marker, and then I'm going to pass that the previous marker. So basically what I've done is I've said, okay, the previous marker is where I was, which was the current marker. Now the current marker is the next marker after the previous marker. Now I'm ready to create a marker. Variable my marker equals my sequence dot markers dot create marker, and then we want this to start at the beginning of the clip, which is tclip dot start dot seconds. Then we want to add in the distance from the beginning of that clip, which would be current marker dot start dot seconds. But if you remember, we looked and we said it's an hour off, so we need to subtract the number of seconds in 1 hour. So let's subtract 3600. Now let's set the name equal to the name of the marker in the clip. So my marker dot name equals current marker dot name. Then let's copy the color over. So we'll say my marker dot set color by index. So we've got to get the index of that color, and we can get that by going to current marker dot get color by index. Next, let's copy the comments over. So my marker dot comments equals current marker dot comments. Now comes the hardest part. We need to change the type of the marker to match the type of the marker in the clip. And there's 4 different types. We need to figure out what type we have first. So what we're going to do is create a switch case segment, which will let us look at each individual type but not have to have a big messy if-then statement. So we do switch, and we want to look at the current marker dot type and make sure it's a string. So to string, and then we can look at each of the individual cases. So first case quote comment. So the first type is comment, put a colon, and then what do we do if it is a comment? What we do is we do my marker dot set type as comment, and then we are done. So we break out of the switch case statement. If it's not a comment, then let's check for another case. Case chapter. You always have to have the colon there. And then we have my marker dot set type as chapter, and we'll break. Next we have case segmentation. Once again, my marker dot set type as segmentation. And then we have the fourth type, case web link. Capitalization is important on these, so you notice this one has a capital W and a capital L. The rest of these only have capital of the first letters. So we're going to do a my marker dot set type as web link. Now this one's going to be a little different in that it actually has some parameters that we need to pull from the current marker. If you notice, when we had a web link, it had the URL and it had the frame target. So we can pull those and add them right here. So we're going to put in current marker dot get web link URL, and that will get the URL from the link itself and get that copied over, and then we need to get the frame target. So current marker dot get web link frame target, and then once again we'll do a break. And then with the switch statement, they really like you to have a default option in case it hits none of the above. In this particular case, we're just going to break. So now, this is a longer script, but we go through every one of the markers, we create a new marker, and then we change the type of the marker depending on what type the marker was. Let's give it a try. Okay, so I had a couple of typos as I was typing all of that. This line right here should be bin clip. I accidentally had big clip, and I had accidentally added an extra T right here, so we have those corrected now. Let's run the script. And we come over here. We now will see we have an orange, a white, a purple, a red, and a green, so those all match. And then let's look at each one of these. This one says web, has frame target, which is what we typed in, has my URL. If we go to the next one, this is the white marker, and here's the comment that was on the marker, and here's the name that we had used. Go to the next one. It is now a purple marker, and it is a segmentation one. Next we have the chapter marker, and next we have another regular marker that is standard green. So all of the ones on the timeline match all the ones that were on the clip. So as you can see, adding markers to the timeline using a script is a very easy process. Please sign up at www.jettv.com and subscribe on YouTube to get further notifications on when new videos are presented.